So this past week I decided to do the Georgia portion of the Appalachian Trail, which took me 6 days. It's over 76 miles for the total thing, but you do have to add another 4 miles of backtracking to get to parking lots where people can pick you up in their cars. So before I left, this is my fire starter system that I use. I just slather Vaseline all over cotton balls, put them in some prescription bottles, and it's really lightweight and easy to pack. And this is what all of my gear looked like for the week. I would take a few less clothes, but otherwise I've used pretty much everything that you see here. And this is the Nimblewood Gap route up for Service Road 42, and it was awful. Don't go this way, go the opposite direction. So along the path you'll see these white blazes on trees. That's how you can tell you're headed the right direction each time. And then when you see the two white blazes like this, that's indicative of a campsite or a shelter, something nearby. And then the blue blazes tell you that there's a water source, which occasionally these do run dry, so be wary. And then you'll see signs like this along the way. This one says Privy, others will say whatever gap you're in or some other landmark. And then this is what the water source looks like at a lot of the shelters. So in the early stages, it's kind of not quite tropical, but there's a lot of vegetation like this that encroaches on the trail. And I don't know how the Survivor Man and those other guys film themselves and then go back and pick up their cameras over and over and over, because I'm not going to do it. In the early stages, there's man-made bridges and some other stuff along the way that make it really easy to tell you're on the trail. And then once you cross over the bridge, this gives you a good idea of a lot of the steps. There's tons and tons of climbing that you do over rocks like this, which are kind of like staircases, but it just wears you down after a while. And again, I only filmed myself, where I had to come back to my camera twice. This is the last time you'll see it on the first few days. So again, this is day one, so just testing out some different angles. Here's Three Forks Campsite, which is a great spot to car camp. You can bring a cooler, a big multi-person tent, and usually there are cars lined all up and down that road during the fall, especially this time of year. This is a random spot along the way where the Army Rangers train nearby, and they'll actually use this field to rappel out of helicopters occasionally. So, not while I was there, but it would have been pretty awesome to check that out. Yep, just like Grandpa's walk to school, it's uphill both ways everywhere you go. And this is Justice Creek. This spot was great. There ended up being a good 10 people or so that camped out the first night here with me. And this gives you an idea of what it looks like to do meal preps on the trail. It's pretty much everything that I had. You added water to it, stirred it up, sealed it, and then came back to it a few minutes later. As far as drinks, I just filtered water the entire time, and then I did have one bottle of a flavor additive, like a Mio generic version from Publix of this. So that lasted me pretty much the full 5-6 days. 5 days of shelter camping is what I'm saying. And then it's chicken Alfredo, which isn't supposed to necessarily be a soup like this, but you don't get picky. You're so hungry that this tasted really, really good. So this is the start of day 2. You can see it's just even more great weather. It gives you an idea of all the different trees that are around and different colors. And then there's tunnels, so to speak, along the way too, which are fine during the daytime, but I do not like camping through these at night. It's a little too spooky for me with just a headlamp. So Justice Creek we saw earlier, and then this one are the only two little creeks or streams that you have to cross over during the entire trip based on the amount of rainfall that's been going on this fall. Maybe a couple of spots that have more water depending on if there's a lot more rain in the past. And here you can get an idea of what it sounds like to just keep your head down and crunching of leaves. That's a common sound for all 6 days. And then this seasoned couple from Colorado just flew by me. They were flying.
Give me a seat. They just seem to keep coming.
There are probably maybe 4 different spots where you cross a pretty busy highway where during the weekends in the fall there are a lot of people. So this is Woody Gap, which has an actual toilet in that little building there, but there's no running water anywhere, so better than nothing. This is what the view looks like when you get on some of the ridges, which are much more pleasant to hike than climbing up and down.
This is the stretch before Gerard's Gap.
And this is the only stone shelter along the way, which is Blood Mountain, and I was going to give a tour here of the 2 rooms that are inside, but you can tell that I turned around very quickly once I saw that someone was trying to sleep, so I did not want to disturb them. And right outside there's some really, really large rocks that you can climb all over and see in all different directions, and it's really good stuff. And surprisingly, there weren't many people here. This was Sunday in the afternoon, so most people had packed it up for the weekend, and we're getting back to normal. This store at Neel's Gap actually has all kinds of camping equipment, food. It's a great place to stop. And this is my ride to the hotel at the end of day 2.
It's the start of day 3. Started at Neel's Gap and it's been all uphill since, but the weather starting out really awesome yet again. I'm not jinxing it because they already said it's going to rain today, but we shall enjoy while we can. So 3.5 miles north of Neel's Gap is this awesome campsite that you could easily have a group of people This nice fire ring, flat spots for tents, more space over here, and then just one of the better views from campsites that you'll see. Back to it. So here we are, 4.6 miles from Neel's Gap. Awesome.
The downside of coming to this parking lot is that you can see when I zoom in, it's a steep climb right after this parking lot, so that's why I decided to put my ground cover down and eat lunch.
Well, the rain was very, very brief, but I think it's just a matter of time. You can see the view is. So I just crossed Hog Pen, and this is the cool view ahead of me. Which it is starting to rain a little bit, but with all the tree cover and canopies, it's not too bad in here, but it sounds pretty bad out in the open. The one enjoyable part to the rain is it does make the colors more bold. So it's not quite as drab. Certainly not pleasant walking in the rain, but could be worse. So I just made it to Low Gap. I thought I'd passed it and was pretty bummed, but I've made it, and more importantly, there is water. Which sounds like there's more over that way, but good news, I don't have to put the tent up tonight. I can just sleep there and be covered.
So this gives you an idea of what I have to set up each night for sleeping. So I put my ground cover down, inflate my sleeping pad, throw that in the sleeping bag, and I'm good, which is a warning to everybody that rodents and mice are all over these shelters. So if you don't like mice, which I don't, they will crawl on top of your sleeping bag and annoy you, and then you can hear them gnawing and crawling all night. So I recommend taking some small foam earplugs as well. Here's the luxurious bathrooms that you get at the shelters. It beats a hole in the ground, so I'm not complaining, just letting you know what you're getting into if you decide to stay at these places. And then here's what the water source looks like. A lot of them. This is the easiest way to fill up, which is great. You just get a piece of PVC pipe coming out, fill up your 2-liter bag or whatever you have, and go from there. And then at the shelters, you have the picnic table, or you're pretty much right there at waist height on a lot of these shelters to cook your food, so it works really well for us. So I ended up having this one canister lasted me the entire trip, and I ran out making breakfast on the final day, which thankfully there's another person at the shelter who let me use his gas, and then that way I could finish boiling my water for my breakfast and eat. So it's always preferred to actually eat your breakfast. And this way you can see how the cotton balls fire up when it's got all the Vaseline on there, which works extremely well. And again, it's lightweight, very portable, and it's a preferred method of mine, whether I'm car camping or backpacking. It's just a great thing I use for fire starting.
It's the start of day 4. It's 8:15. It stopped raining pretty early yesterday, but the wind howled all night. So it's a little chillier than expected, but I'll warm up soon. So I'm not sure if you can hear it, but this is what the wind sounded like all night last night. Which is great. It was good white noise to drown out the snoring people in the shelter next to me.
I'm recording this narration on Halloween.
It's a little chilly. It's blowing the rain out of the trees, even though it's not raining, so not ideal. Sleepy Hollow. Forget about all the colorful leaves until you're actually underneath them and look up. You forget that's what people are driving around, looking at all this that I've been hiking under and not even paying attention for the last couple of days. Well, I made it to Unicoi, which is good, but the bad news, Unicoi is the bottom of that mountain and the one behind me, so long stretch after this. So not quite a mile and a half up, which was all uphill, by the way. You get this great view. Good time to take a break. Thank you, trail angels. Some of these parking lots So this is 3 miles north of Unicoi. Pretty spot. There's some rough spots to get here, but this is worth it. Three and a half miles north of Unicoi. Ooh. So this is between Tray Gap and the Tray Gap shelter. I needed a break. Awesome. Oh, here we are. Tray Gap. It's got a privy, water down the hill, and more importantly, a roof. That's a great start to the day. And yesterday I didn't see the lake out in the distance. Pretty awesome. So this is a little over 2.5 miles past the Deep Gap shelter, and man, it's dry now, but you can tell that when this area here gets heavy rain, it must flow really hard. So pretty cool. It's really just a reason for me to take a break. And this section's like a rainforest, hilly vegetation everywhere. There's water down there. And then the other piece is, you can see right there, the Trail Conservancy does a great job of making little areas for the water to get diverted to avoid washout, and that way the trail stays in relatively good shape year round. And the bummer is the rocks tend to stick. So this spot's good for getting some sun, which is warmer. The trail starts there, and then there are a couple of picnic tables to rest, top off the water, and get a snack. So this is 2 3/4, all climbing from Dix Creek Gap or whatever that last road was. My goodness, that was work. And the breeze was not on that side. So a lot of climbing, a lot of sweat, but I'm optimistic this is better now. We shall see.
So this is the Tray Gap shelter, which is actually 3 levels. So 2 through hikers had the bottom level, another guy from Atlanta had the second level, and then I took the penthouse suite, which was great for breaking any kind of wind and cold that way, but all the sound is definitely amplified up there. So that's the only bummer.
So all the spots have these bear bag hangers. So you hook your stuff and then shimmy it up like you would a flagpole, hook it over to the tree, and then your gear is at least 12 feet off the ground and 6 feet away from the tree, like they say. And then this one's actually easier because they have a bear box. So this is the start of the final day. It's really windy. Don't know how much you can tell on camera, but I have about 4.5 miles to get to North Carolina, then turn around and do a little over 3 miles to get to the shuttle. So super pumped. I'm not sure what the pipe is, but how about that? Woohoo! There is the famous Bly Gap tree. Oh. It's technically in North Carolina, so it's not part of the Georgia Trail. Whatever. A typical mile. One last video on the way back south to Springer. Don't fall. Just awesome. So I made it to the official start and screwed up and walked right past the stupid plaque and went down the approach trail about half a mile till I realized what I'd done. So anyway, the wonderful luck of wonderful stretch of dry weather has ended for sure. And now I get to hike down a mile to the parking lot, then 6.5 miles to the church to be picked up. So I think I'm giving up on avoiding the puddles and just sloshing through it from here. Anyway, I am officially finished with the Georgia section. So, time to get the phone out of the rain since I don't have a waterproof case. See ya.
So this is the worst of my hiking, which goes to show how nice it was, where it wasn't bad at all. So I debated putting this in there or not, and I don't like the way I popped this blister. I should have actually put 2 holes in it. And then you will be happy to know I did use peroxide after I got finished draining it and playing around. I didn't mess too much, but I enjoy popping blisters, so I hate getting blisters, but getting the water out of them is pretty exciting to me. Kind of weird that way. But anyway, this is the extent of the video portion. From here on, it's just a collection of images. Thanks for watching.